Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Thursday. It is November the 6th, and welcome to our program. We have some bittersweet news that we will start off the day with. Nancy Pelosi has decided, after 400 years, she's no longer going to seek re-election. She's not going to try to be the congressional representative out of California. And so we'll have a moment of just sort of peaceful and thankful quiet for her decision. She was actually asked yesterday whether or not she was going to do this, and she said she came to this conclusion.
We don't even care whether or not we care.
And she doesn't remember saying it because she's 10,000 years old. So some people will play things like Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, but no, it's really just a sad moment. But what it did remind me of is the fact that this woman has been there for 40 years, and she's been doing something that's kind of interesting. She has been controlling, off and on, for almost half the time in the last 20. She's been controlling the Praetorian Guard of the United States Congress. Today we're going to talk about which government agencies really cannot stand. And I think I've got a constitutional answer to them. I've also got some examples of people who don't know the Constitution, but have huge audiences that go out and speak about them, and they sound like absolute fools. And they'll never be able to walk away from that. If you're going to open your mouth and assign certain things to certain documents that exist in either our governmental structure or our American history, maybe you should know what they were beforehand. But as I found out, it doesn't actually matter if you know anything. We've got some of the dumbest people possible that are out running this country and influencing the country and talking about things as though they're commentators with some sort of knowledge base, and they have none. It's probably because they've never done anything of value. So we're going to go there. And I'm going to make a broad argument against women voting. And I'm going to do it with women. Ladies, many of you have made the argument that there's no reason for women to vote. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote until that goes away. But I think there's a pretty strong argument to be made that a lot of the atrocious decisions that have been done and some of the things that people fear, including women who listen to this program, the things that you hate would stop if women couldn't vote. That's a really interesting thought. The question is, how does the camel get its nose under the tent? And I think women's suffrage was one of them. So for all of you that are ready to get riled up about that, let's do that soon. We're going to do it in just 1 second. Before we do, we will talk about my friends over at Patriot Protect. Let's talk about safety. Let's talk about your digital safety. Let's talk about the ability to find people. I found senior members of executive agencies, including the people who are director level. I found their home addresses in about 90 seconds because I know how to do it. If you don't want that stuff out there on the web, if you don't want your email address, your phone number, your home address, and so on, if you don't want your family connections available to anybody on the data broker websites, you may want to look into a service like Patriot Protect. It's an awful lot harder to find mine, and I'm pretty public. Folks, Patriot Protect, the website is patriot-protect.com/KYLE. They may prompt you for a promo code at the end. Use my name, Kyle. Save yourself 15% on an annual subscription. Does this save you from every type of scam? No. What it's trying to do is make it harder for scammers and criminals to look you up and make you the target. Because inevitably, they may catch you at a bad moment. And that can happen to anybody. It's scary easy for criminals and scammers and even the people who are federal agents sitting in their car that don't have access to better databases to find your personal information online. And that means all the stuff we just talked about, it's a couple of clicks away. It really does take only a few seconds. And if somebody has decided to target you, or if they're just looking for an easy target and they're trying to find who's out there, they can harvest this personal information and use it against you. They can pretend to be you, or they can pretend to be someone who knows you from a company that you actually work with. Get yourself cleaned up online. Have someone like Patriot Protect scrub your digital information and make it harder for these people to go out and find you. It's really inexpensive. This is like the ounce of prevention versus the pound of cure. We're talking less than $100 a year to go out there and do it. I've already forgotten what the dollar amount was because I did it at the beginning of the year, and it's just on renewal. Patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. We'll talk about cyber threats in the future as they come up. They continue to exist and they will always be out there. This is sort of like an arms race. So get yourself armed up with some digital camouflage. You don't want to go to battle without being covered up. That's what we got. Let's get started. Let's have some fun. Yeah, let's do that now. So she's out, she says. There she is. Look at that lady. She is just a figure of reptilian skin-walking demon status, isn't she? Just stretching skin over a body that shouldn't even be moving anymore. And then also strangely has augmented breasts, it seems like. What a odd lady. Nancy Pelosi, she announces that she will no longer seek re-election to Congress after nearly 40 years in Washington, D.C. What she really said quietly was she was tired of putting in her dentures and pretending she wasn't hammered. Let's read this story from CNN Politics, written just a few minutes ago. Nancy Pelosi, the first and only female Speaker of the House of Representatives. Oh, that might be one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about today. One of the most powerful figures in Democrat politics for decades has announced that she will not seek re-election. Quote, I say to my colleagues in the House all the time, no matter what title they had bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there's been no greater honor than for me to stand up on the House floor and say, I speak for the people of California. Speak for the people of San Francisco. I've truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, the anthem for our city. And that is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know that I will not be seeking re-election to Congress, said Nancy Pelosi, who is 85,000 years old. Wow. That is some truly poignant stuff. She quoted St. Francis of Assisi. That's really nice. And she speaks for the people of San Francisco. Well, as somebody who was born in the Bay Area and grew up in the rest of America like a real American person, I gotta just say, gross! That lady is awful. And if that's what's the voice of San Francisco, it tells you why I won't go back. And many of you never will either. That's why it's covered in poop, just like her ethics and her nasty fake Catholicism that she's been out there like floating around. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative and what may be my final year on this planet, as I am ancient and the only thing holding me together is this demonic interest in holding on to power. This might be the end for me. She was first elected in 1987. She made history when she got the first ever female speaker's gavel in 2007. She remains the only woman to have wielded the gavel because she would never let it go from her freaking bony little hands. Nancy Pelosi, you horrible creature. I'm serious. I've been saying this for so many years, and I don't think this is very nice, but I can't help but look at it. Somebody said, how is she staying together? Like, how does she keep doing what she does? And I'm like, that's not Nancy Pelosi. Nancy was, she was replaced a long time ago, obviously. There's some sort of skin-walking demon that just bears her skin, and at some point, they're going to have to shed the body because it is no longer possible to keep up the facade and collagen injections and the hair and the dentures that is keeping that thing alive. And so it'll have to shed that skin and climb into something else. Maybe it'll go into a younger model like an AOC. I don't know. It's not very nice for me to say that, but I really do not like that woman. And I think she's done some truly horrifically awful things in this country. She has taken the level of discourse down. She's added levels of hypocrisy that were previously unseen. And she was the first female speaker that says something about who this country will put in that speakership role. She's not the only Speaker of the House that I'm not a big fan of. The woman who currently wields the gavel is also not my favorite. You guys may be aware of that. We're going to talk a little bit about government shutdowns and some of that stuff. Let's first hear from Sean Hannity. Let's hear from Sean Hannity, who is one of the most highly paid news people, or whatever it is that he does. I don't know if it's news talkers, TV presenters in America. And Sean Hannity is so highly paid, in my opinion, because what he's able to do that no one else can do is he can tell his guests what they think before they even answer the question, because his question is, in fact, the answer, and get them to agree with it. And that is a really special trait. Forget the inquisitive mind. Forget the Larry King. I just want to ask people a question and speak less than 10% of the time if possible. Sean Hannity has mastered the art of saying 70% of what needs to be said and then just asking for agreement. So that's my favorite. And by the way, his style has been copied by brilliant broadcasters like Megyn Kelly. I just watched a couple of interviews that Megyn did with Alexis Wilkins. This is Kash Patel's, hold on, let me say it right, country music sensation girlfriend, who dropped another lawsuit on another person yesterday. Sean Hannity is a style that many people aspire to have. When I find myself doing what I call the Hannity, I always kick myself because I hate it. This is going to be fun, though, because this is a man agreeing with another man. This is Smithers doing what he does best, which is kind of simper and agree with a more powerful person. And that more powerful person, he kind of looks like John Kerry. Have you guys noticed that some of these men, these like, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, they end up looking like Halloween masks? They remind me, hold on here, I'm going to show you on the screen. For those of you that are not watching, you're missing out. But up on the wall over here to my right, I have a painting or a canvas, whatever it is, of the jump scene from Point Break. So it's Keanu Reeves and it's Patrick Swayze. And so that's Johnny Utah and Bodie jumping out of the plane, doing the first skydive scene, and they're holding arms and they grip and they get like the kind of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, like 80s, 90s, like, yeah, two bros, like grabbing arms. And yeah, they're just, where the hell was I going with this? I just went off the rails. Let me play this clip and see if the thought comes back. That's terrible.
Between air traffic controllers, SNAP benefits, our military, at what point is there a breaking point and some people in that party wake up and understand this is damaging and hurting a lot of Americans all across the board?
Yeah, exactly. They care more about their own political careers than they care about the people that they claim to represent. And that's why you're seeing these broad demographic shifts into the Republican Party. People are tired of this. You know, the Democrats funded a study that just came out a couple weeks ago, and their own study identified the Democrat Party is said to be thought of as weak and woke and out of touch. And they're proving that every day. They just simply don't care about the people anymore.
I'm looking at the chat. I was like, guys, what the hell was I talking about? It's the masks. They all end up Sean Hannity, John Kerry, Ronald Reagan. Their face all ends up looking like Halloween masks from the movie Point Break. Yeah, somebody said, welcome to old age. God, is this what it starts like? It felt like I was holding on to something, and then I looked away and I looked back and there was nothing in my hands. I just was completely empty-handed. All right. Yeah, so that's the kind of serious people that we have. We've got this simpering nonsense. They're talking about government shutdown. Why? Because the government's still shut down. We still have a government that's not functioning. And yet all of you woke up, and I'm going to keep saying it every day that you wake up and you look around. Like my coffee pot it smelled like coffee, and the water taps worked, and was able to run my water filtration. I turned on the gas, and all the normal things keep working. What is not going to work, and I actually looked at taking a flight because I thought maybe I should go look at Montana in the winter. That seems like a good idea. It's not really a great idea. And then I started thinking, like, that's not a good idea, especially when the FAA is starting to cut flights and these guys are starting to talk about this a little bit more. Sean Duffy apparently is going to cut 10% of the air traffic control, which means they're going to cut 10% of the flights and the amount that they can actually handle. That's a good safety option. This is going to start pinching some people. And I think we can be aware of that. And I also think that this is going to end up backfiring because the Republicans didn't own it when they could. I've poked this a lot. And I don't think that I'm incorrect in assessing that eventually you can call it the Schumer shutdown. They're out there doing it. I got one of other folks talking about this is a Democrat shutdown. They voted against it. Yeah, at the end of the day, they're going to look at you as being the party in power. And if you cannot look to yourself and say, we take the power, we take the responsibility. Yes, we're not the end all be all. We don't have the ability to unilaterally declare what is and what is not. But if you don't own things, then you just wait and see if people just push their opinion on you. However, if you own it, then you can shape why you did it. And since we've already showed you polling yesterday that Americans are starting to lean overwhelmingly, illogically or otherwise, towards believing that the Republicans are the ones who are responsible for shutdown, and there are going to be some things that start touching people, and the FAA is one of them. What's funny is it actually makes the argument that those of us who are constitutionalists, those of us who are conservatives that really actually believe in small government, that we've always made. And that is that less things should be handled by the federal government. I'm going to give you a broader thought. If a federal budget is the thing that keeps you from getting on an airplane, let's say in Austin, Texas, so I'd drive 45 minutes down to the airport. If I can't go down there and reasonably expect that my dollars will be exchanged for a place on a plane that will fly me to a place roughly the time that it's supposed to get there, I need to go to Dulles. I need to go to Billings. I know to go to San Francisco and go give Nancy Pelosi a high five. If I can't reasonably expect to go do that because the federal government in Washington, D.C. is unable to pass a budget, isn't that the strongest possible argument for divested and devolved local control? That it shouldn't be a federal government question? Shouldn't we just find out that, well, it looks like the air traffic controllers in California are not getting paid because California has no money? It shouldn't be that the federal government says, well, we're not going to pass a budget about anything. Yet another example of this, the SNAP benefits thing that keep popping up, that really, I think, cause people to think, well, this is free and it is mine and you've been giving it to me and therefore I should continue to get it. The people that think that way, does it not bother you that that money comes from the furthest possible, least accountable system to you, the person? Shouldn't that be the answer? Shouldn't that even be the answer for people who, generally speaking, want government to solve their problems? The people who have this attitude? At least this guy is going to be the mayor, which is about as close to you as it gets when it comes to, I guess you could be a borough president in New York City. They have 5 borough presidents, and then they got the mayor in New York. You could at least get one step closer, but he's about as close as most of us will ever see to local control. Your mayor is usually the most close to your personage senior executive in an executive role in government that is accountable as close as it can be to you. The odds of you running into your mayor, wherever you live, no matter the size of your city, are infinitely higher than accidentally running into your congressman, your senator, your governor, your president. These people want government to be the solution. Fine, let it be the closest version they're in.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Okay, and if that's the case and you want to do it at the city level so that municipalities are the ones that are funding your security, are funding your TSA, are funding your air traffic control towers, then there will just be some places we can't fly into. And it's like, oh, there's a strike in San Francisco. We're going to have to fly into Oakland. We're going to have to fly into Sacramento. There are other options in most places that you could fly into. Smaller airports, regional airports, uncontrolled towers, whatever. That would make an awful lot more sense rather than finding out that the FAA is going to cut flights, which the FAA doesn't necessarily run flights. They run the sort of infrastructure on the back end. And it's a federal problem, which means it's a national problem, when in fact it shouldn't be at all. I think the argument that they are actually showing, and Republicans are missing this opportunity to go out and say, we're proving that government's a bad answer, by showing you that when you shut down government, things that are so close to you are affected by people who are so far away from you not voting. That's the claim. That's my take on this. And wouldn't it be nice if we had real, actual conservatives that looked at that and said, this is a huge opportunity. Not the Smithers that wander around on their belly and hope that Sean Hannity will tell them the answer and then they can agree with it. They're not voting for this thing and we don't have SNAP and this and that. This is the same exact argument being made. Apparently, this talking point has been marched out, so we're supposed to all believe it. But there's nothing conservative about this. Hence my claim, if you're a conservative and you're in the Republican Party, you are the rhino. something is not like the others, and it's you.
When you put in communist and, yes, communist policies, that's what Zoran Mamdani is talking about.
He's not a communist.
It never
Democratic
works.
Socialist. He says he's Democratic socialist.
I can't tell what the difference is.
Well, he can describe
Explain what the difference is.
He can describe the differences for you. The socialism is not the same basis of communism in this country. You know that quite well.
The man wants to create government-run grocery stores. He wants free transportation, both of which are impossible to do. Because how is
a trigger word to try to undermine all of his policies. He's not a. He says he's
I don't need to undermine his policies. His policies undermine himself.
Well,
because they've never worked. Here's all I want him to do. Tell me where they've ever worked. They've never worked. He knows that. I knows that. But what he's trying to do is promise everybody something that they can't have. And the truth is there is no free lunch, just like there's no free bus.
And you knows that, and I knows that, and we all knows that, says Byron Donalds from Florida. Why does he care? It's New York. Again, if New Yorkers want this, I think it's great. I think New Yorkers should see if it works. I'm going to show you some evidence of the people who think that it might and how deep their thinking goes, which is very, very deep. They know an awful lot. Isn't it interesting? That was on CNN. That woman pushed back and said, you can't say communist. Why not? Like, his ideas are relatively communistic. He basically espouses the communist ideas. Well, they're democratic socialism. What's the difference? What's the distinction? Why are you making a claim about that? But the key here is, and I'm totally okay with them doing it, by the way. I'm excited for New York. That's why I woke up so gleeful yesterday. Allow people at the lowest possible level to make whatever dumb decisions they like. And if you don't like it, get out. You have an option. You can vote with your feet. You can run. Does it suck? Yes. I mean, you might even lose money. You might drive down property values and not be able to get out for the money that you had. So what? You've been living there. The warning signs have been there for decades. Knock yourself out or don't. Stay around and see what happens. At least it's at the local level. And you have a congressman from Florida who's complaining about it. I think that's really funny. Meanwhile, they're going to make the same argument that the federal government, this is not a conservative position, that the federal government is going to is responsible for SNAP benefits and should be responsible. No one's even contesting that this plan, this program, that this amount of money that we hand out to people on a monthly basis, that 42 million people in this country are reliant on the furthest possible government. At least if they're trying to get free buses in their city, they're going to have to figure it out, and they're going to see that the rich people that are going to have to pay for it are going to move. They can watch that happen very, very quickly locally. They'd be like, oh, all the penthouses are empty. All the financial corporations pulled chocks and moved out somewhere else. Like they did, like some of them did from Chicago and moved down to Florida. People are going to pick their businesses up and they're going to go where it makes sense. The market will dictate it, but at least it's at a local level. You can't leave the United States if you want to be a U.S. citizen. I had a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine who's a high net worth individual. And he's like, I may have to move to Russia. Do you know how crazy it is that we're talking about that? I said, yeah, that is crazy. It's crazy because you cannot escape national policies. We cannot escape the idea that 42 million people, that 1 in 8 people in this country are reliant on the federal government for nutritional benefits? That seems wild. So the same man that's just out there from Florida attacking a New York mayor, which doesn't affect him even a little bit, unless I guess a bunch of the New Yorkers come down there, is also trying to say that this is we should cry about this shutdown. It's wild to watch the theatrical presentation. How dare you? Elect a person that I don't agree with in a place that has zero impact or effect on me. Meanwhile, let me go out there and demonize my colleagues because they're not paying for things that are the opposite of what my party theoretically says it stands for.
The truth is, Betty, that the fault is Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, and here's why. They had an opportunity to vote to keep the government open, to pay SNAP benefits. They have voted no, not once, not twice, but now 14 times. We actually put on the floor of the Senate to pay our troops, to pay air traffic control, to pay border agents, ICE agents, etc. They voted no. And why are they voting no? Because Chuck Schumer has this assumption that the Democrats won the presidential election and that they control both chambers of Congress. That is a fallacy. And so what they're arguing for is that we should ignore the results of last year's election just to do what Chuck Schumer says. In short, that Republicans should negotiate against themselves.
But the fallacy, though, Congressman, you guys are in control. You have the House, you've got the Senate, and you have the White House. Don't you have more than enough power?
No, we don't. And the reason why is because of the Senate filibuster. Now, I'm on the record. I think the Senate filibuster is actually destructive of real compromise.
You want to get rid of it?
I believe we should get rid of it because what it actually stops Republicans and Democrats in the Senate from doing is finding solutions where both parties could work together in order to get majority votes. What happens now is you have the Democrats who were hiding behind the filibuster saying that they're not getting their way. They've argued for 4 different things. At one point, they were arguing for funding for NPR. Then they were arguing to undo some Doge cuts. Then they started arguing over Obamacare premiums. Premiums, by the way, the Democrats put in place when they were in charge of the trifecta. They did not make them permanent. They made them sunset this year on purpose because they were COVID-era subsidies.
None of that matters. None of that is, these are all talking about symptoms and you're not talking about the disease. Wouldn't it be interesting if they just said, hey, we're not going to do a CR, we're going to go line by line and we're going to appropriate. Oh, there's almost like, I feel like somebody said that was going to be the way we did business. And I feel like they did it like 2 years ago.
Committed to never being in this situation again. I'm done with short-term CRs. We're resolved. So what that means is you're going to see in the beginning of this next year, we'll be walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're going to get the appropriations process running on time as it's supposed to be under law. The Budget Control Act of 1974 has very specific provisions in there on how this is to be done. Congress hasn't done that for as long as we can remember. But we're going to get back to that because that's good stewardship. The American people deserve it. And the debt situation we find ourselves in necessitates that. So.
Okay, let's do that. Let's just write individual appropriations, and you can fund or not fund SNAP, and you can fund or not fund the air traffic controllers. You could fund or not fund ICE. You can fund or not fund Border Patrol. You can pay or not pay for the FBI. You can bitch about Arctic frost and the fact that a bunch of people were quote unquote spying on you, and then you can go and give them their entire budget because you're going to do that anyway. All of these clowns are going to go out there. They talk out of both sides of their mouth, and they don't even hold themselves accountable to the thing they said less than 2 years ago. Why would we take them seriously? He's out there claiming that the filibuster's the issue. Brother, the issue predates our lifespan. It's the 17th Amendment. We actually should know that. And if you paid attention to anything, you would understand our American system has been broken for as long as we can think about. Why is it broken? Because the upper house is not an upper house. It's a representative house, just like the lower house. So all the dysfunction that you have where you get a simple majority passes is now in the thing where you needed a supermajority. And it was meant to represent the supermajority that exists because it represents the state houses. The Senate was not meant to be a representation of you directly as an individual voter. Direct elections of Senate actually subverted the capabilities of our government to function. And everything that has happened since then has included significant and crippling national debt, just a ceding of authority over to the executive branch. It's so predictable that if you break the way that the system works, something will compensate. And the thing that is compensated is essentially ruled by fiat from the executive. And so we act like we're really outraged when Barack Obama or Joe Biden does the thing, and Donald Trump will do the same thing because you've strengthened the executive. It's not the fault of, honestly, on any of them. It actually goes back way before they were even born. It predates their time on Earth. Because this actually came after us. It came after, it was obvious that it would follow that way. And there are certain things that when you break the way that our constitutional restraints were set up, and I'm going to give you guys an example in the second half of the show, I would argue to you that the United States Capitol Police, who we covered the other day doing headshots and shooting at people in the crowd on January 6th, constitutes a modern day Praetorian Guard. We're going to talk about the historical context of what that means and why it should not only be abolished, but why I think it's not even constitutional that it exists today. But the historical ignorance that exists on both sides of the aisle, and maybe it's willful ignorance, and that includes people that you might even like. Some of you found my program because of people that I am talking about right now, and they don't even seem to realize that they are doing things that are expressly outside the bounds of our Constitution. We have a separation of powers. You hear Democrats cry about it when it benefits them. You hear Republicans cry about it when it benefits them. Does anybody do anything about it and actually recognize it? It doesn't seem like they do. And another thing that's really interesting right now, as people are starting to find themselves, and they go, good God, I thought we voted our way out of problems. I was pretty confident that Trump was going to solve all the issues. Didn't he say he was going to shut down the IRS and replace it with tariffs? That only works if you get rid of a significant amount of the things that we spend our federal dollars on, some of which would include defense spending. Like, it has to go away. We cannot spend the amount of money that we do. I found this article from NBC, and I found it fascinating because it actually coincides with the CBS piece that I read earlier, saying that we are essentially in what's called a K-shaped economy right now. And you can imagine the letter K, which has a north and south vertical, but it basically has two legs that come out. That's also the first letter of my name, so that's easy for me to remember. One leg goes upward and the other one slants downward. And basically, it is a K that is slanted higher up on the vertical shaft, such that people that are at the top end of our economy, the highest earners, the highest income people, they are experiencing growth, stock market growth. If you make more than $100,000 a year, you're likely not in a much worse position that you were in last year, even though there's continuing inflation and certain things have gone sort of sideways for costs. You're actually more or less compensated with it, especially if you have money in the market. Then you got the people on the lower end of that bracket. And the people on the lower end of that bracket overwhelmingly are finding themselves in worse and worse situations. Nobody is talking about the cause of this situation, and much of it can be attributed to two-income households that are struggling to survive, multiple jobs where people are doing everything they can, a marriage rate that is toppling in this country because we've gotten away from traditional values. And so we have actually gotten in an arms race of ourselves. What you've done is you've pitted the top income earners who can get away with one income. Oh, the people that are willing to tighten their belts and live on one income. They're much more insulated against some of these problems because they can always have somebody step out and grab another job. And this is historically what happened. By the way, this is what Elizabeth Warren wrote in The Two Income Trap, that when you saddle yourself up and you make two incomes necessary for household survival, you screw over not just yourself, because you've now put yourself with 2 points of failure on what used to be a single point of failure problem, and you could actually come in and insulate it. You actually have created a problem where you're now in an arms race financially with everybody else for childcare, for schooling, for anything associated with that. Multiple family cars, bigger houses. Anybody that wants to hold a family and have two incomes has actually gotten themselves into an arms race with their neighbor. And you've screwed over the people that actually had single incomes, because now they're looking at it and they have to make more to be able to compensate for the higher housing bids, the higher costs of transportation, and so on and so forth that came from these other families that could afford it. The market flexes upwards to take that money. It doesn't just allow you to live at a higher standard, just the normal standard ends up being more expensive because people are competing for it. And so this is a basic market principle. And when you see that K-shaped economy, you can imagine why a lot of people on the lower half are saying, yeah, I'm now voting for free stuff because I'm seeing that other people are not suffering the way that I am, and people have this instinct for fairness, and jealousy is another piece of it. That's what socialism's always been like. So they're out there pushing this. And some of this is because Trump has not solved the problems he came in and say. Imagine if you decrease the housing pressure by getting rid of the millions that we claimed we're going to get rid of. We're getting rid of like thousands, and we should be getting rid of hundreds of thousands when it comes to illegal aliens in this country and pulling them off the rolls. They haven't fixed the voting systems. You're going to hear people crying about it. There will be cries about whether or not the election results were fair and free in places like New York and Virginia and in New York and New Jersey. You'll hear that come up. But a mass majority of people, to the point where if you added all other candidates up together, they voted for Mamdani. They voted for a guy that was promising free stuff. Because people, they covet what their neighbor has. And that also is a problem. And it has been addressed biblically. We've walked away from those values in this country. So you're going to have a hard time. The other crazy thing is the money that you make in New York City that is break even would make you wealthy in another place, to the point where I think in a lot of situations, we did an analysis with my sister years ago. She was making like $150,000 or $200,000 a year in New York City, and she was living in like a little one-bedroom tiny apartment. And she's putting money away, but she's not like wealthy. She's not jet setting around, right? She doesn't have like a second property out in the Hamptons or something. So she's, like a strong middle class single earning household. But if she made 60% of that and went to live in Kansas City, she could live like a queen. And if she got married, she probably could live even better. She might actually be happy instead of being miserable because she lives in New York City, which is awful. So there's this inability, there's a tax on people's inability to actually just calculate cost of living and relative standard of life and happiness. You guys would be happy. A lot of people that are living in these urban areas think that you need to be able to do stuff. My father-in-law made an argument to me one time that why would I live anywhere than New York City? Because at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., I can get a pizza delivered and I can get my dry cleaning and my laundry. And the question is like, well, fine. Okay. How many times do you do that a year? Seriously? And all it would take is a little bit of planning and then you don't have to worry about that. Like you can go live for half the cost down in Florida. Why are you? Guess where he lives now? Florida. It's funny how people don't even look out for their own self-interest. And they always make the argument against conservatives. Well, you guys don't vote for government programs that would give you things. Maybe because we can see the second-order effects and the third-order effects. We can also see that our country is being eroded slowly into garbage. And some of that is because there's a lot of interesting voters, and I'm going to show you a couple of them. Let's talk about my friends over at Patriot Supply for a second. If you think things could get bad, I think that's true. Ever since COVID, millions of Americans have been buying preparedness supplies. Are you one of them? Do you have things socked away? I hear the vocal ones say yes. The ones who are quiet in the chat, I always know that you guys don't. Emergency food, that's a good idea. It's a big mistake to wait for other people to save you. If you were in a COVID or in a SNAP benefits crisis and you had 3 months of emergency food put away, maybe you actually wouldn't have such an emergency. You could wait for the benefits to turn back on, which they probably shouldn't anyway. All right. The other thing people forget about is that once you get these things, these supplies, do you have a way to cook it? Do you have a way to heat it? Do you have a way to actually keep things going in a relatively reasonable way? A lot of folks have thought not that far. So, our friends at My Patriot Supply have created the Black Friday Survival Special. It's 4 weeks of food. That just gets you through a tiny little emergency. There's $150 worth of free gifts in there, including things needed to prepare those emergency meals, a cook stove and fuel and fire starters and water purification and a bug out bag and a bunch more stuff. Check them out. This is an all-in-one type kit. Everyone is starting to do their November specials end of the year, so they start putting out their best deals. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. If you're watching on a TV screen or on a computer screen, you can hold your phone up and actually scan that QR code that you see on the screen. Go figure. This is a great Christmas gift. It's a thing that can help you feel a little bit more secure about weird stuff that's going on. And there are weird things. There is a link in the show description. So let's talk about some of these voters. What do these voters look like, people? You know, are they who we think they are? I think they might be. Here is kind of a little montage of why I am concerned that everybody gets a vote. And these ladies get the same vote that I do and that you do. Maybe they shouldn't.
Sharia law starts now. Absolutely. Zohran Mamdani, Islamic Caliphate, our brother in Islam, Islamic Caliphate of New York, starts today, baby.
God, there is just something so electric, so satisfying about knowing that my MAGA parents, wherever they are probably having a horrible night tonight. Oh, I literally just got goosebumps thinking about it. Like they are in such a bad mood probably about the fact that Zoran just won and Prop 50 is gonna pass. Like, wow. God, I'm sorry. It just makes me feel good that my MAGA parents are probably upset right now.
When the day starts with Dick Cheney being dead and ends with Mamdani winning. Oh, yes. Oh. I'm so happy. Oh my God, I'm so happy.
She does seem happy. Kind of like I think Nancy Pelosi experiences happiness. That's hard to watch. That's hard to watch that there are people out there. Again, how sad are those human beings? I woke up and I found out that Mamdani won and I cracked up. I laughed. Why? Because I don't live in New York. And if you're one of the people that's mad because a guy who doesn't govern the city that you don't live in, like, why do you care? We should look at it as a sort of an arbinger of like the bigger problem. But at the end of the day, the people of New York have spoken and that's what they want to try. And listen, they listen to his ideas and they feel great about them. I think this guy's name is Cam Higsby. He's out talking to ladies on the street. Yes, it's more ladies. And these are New York voters. And they're feeling awesome because, you know, Mamdani has energy and enthusiasm and youth, the things that really solve problems. What the hell? You know, give it a try. I don't know why anybody would care. If you're a MAGA parent and you're mad because your kid voted for somebody that's not in your city, like, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. They will find out. That's the best part about it. Maybe it'll be awesome.
What do you think Zoran's best policy is?
I think affordable housing, smaller classrooms, free buses, lower rents, freezing the rents for rent-stabilized buildings.
That sounds great. How do you achieve that?
I think that he has really high hopes, and I think that he has a lot of energy.
He's going to achieve it through hope, or?
I think he's going to achieve it by really having a smart way of dealing with people and picking the proper people to work with him.
What is that smart way of dealing with it?
I think that he has a good sense of of people around him. I think he makes good choices, and I think he works well with other people.
Where does the money come from?
He will figure it out. Like, I think that
He hasn't yet.
I think nobody knows where they're going to do it first. I think they work it out as they go along. They don't have a plan. It's like...
I agree there's no plan.
It's a process.
I certainly agree there's no plan, that's for sure. Question, what is Mamdani's best policy?
Childcare for all.
What's he going to do for childcare?
He's going to make it available for everyone.
How's he going to do that?
He has a plan in terms of taxing and saving money, and I think it's will help everyone.
What is the plan, though?
What is the plan?
Yeah. You're out here campaigning for him, right? What's the plan?
You mean how is he going to fund that? There will be childcare for.
But how do you achieve that?
Well, we've achieved it for pre-K for 3s, and you just expand it so that it's.
How do you expand it?
Well, you use the schools, you use existing facilities, and you use existing tax base and money that's being wasted on consultants to pay for it.
I don't hate the idea of using money that's being wasted on consultants going away. That's not a terrible thing. She said one thing accidentally that was intelligent. Let me tell you how you do it, because maybe they don't know. These ladies don't seem like they understand policy. The way that you get, quote unquote, government funded, aka free childcare for every child anywhere, is that you basically wage enslave young women and you outsource the work of raising and rearing children to women who are not their parents. That's how you do it. You take women and you say, I know that you had this child, and you claim, because it's socially the thing you must do, that this is the most important person in your life. And in reality, biologically, that should be the case. It's like spouse, like honest to God, I honestly think that women probably look at their offspring and say, this is my most important thing. And if men are doing it right, they look at their spouse and say, this is the most important thing. I protect my wife because my wife is the person that helps my children. This is the way I look at it, at least, right? I always tell my kids, my number one is my wife. That doesn't mean they're my number two per se. They're like number 1.3 or something. They're just below, because if without my wife, I don't know how I take care of my children. I don't know how I do it. And it would be incredibly awful. I've seen it done, and the results oftentimes are at the very most generous way. They're really challenging. It's not easy. Men are not perfect at raising children alone. I think that's probably one of the worst ways that it could go. It's got to be tough. And like, it's a suboptimal thing. And that's why the divorce rates and the low marriage rates are really bad, it turns out. But okay. The only way that you're going to get universal childcare, which means every child is able to be deposited in some sort of government institution, is that you are going to take women and pay them less money than the woman who is working. Because that's why the woman has to go there, right? Otherwise, she would raise her own children. You would raise your own child, except you have something, and the opportunity cost of raising your child is too much. You'd like to go make $150,000 a year. So we're going to pay a young lady $30,000 a year to take care of your kids. And by the way, she's going to take care of like 5 other 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 or 25 other kids too. That's how we do it. So it's like a pyramid scheme. And the hope is that you get old enough and get enough either access to a better job, or you marry well enough that you also can now afford to be one of the ladies at the top of the scheme, making the higher salary. So you also can outsource raising your child. And then you get an entire generation that is not raised by their own parents, that is not raised with their own values, that are actually raised by the state. Does that seem like a working system? And crazy enough, Liz Warren knew this in the early 2000s, like 2002. She was like, yeah, in order to do this thing where you make women work outside of the home, it doesn't mean that women can't have jobs. It just means that you can't raise children simultaneous to also holding a high-paying job without enslaving other young women. Because that's who does it. Do you guys want to go check in? Do any of you want to go to a daycare facility with your grandchildren or your children, check them in and realize that it's a bunch of dudes who look like this? Or like bearded men who are going to look after your babies? You're like, no, I don't think this is going to be for me. So it's going to be women. That's who's going to get done. What is the plan? How does it work? The best part of it is, I'm not sure Mamdani knows either. And they're going to find out. When you take a 33-year-old guy that talks really good, but his policy isn't there. Here's what he just released. He said, good morning, New York. We're going to wing it.
Good morning, New York City. Thank you. Last night we made history, and today we begin the work of making a new administration. Welcome to the transition. This is the period over the next few months where we build a city hall that delivers on the promises of our campaign, to make New York City affordable and to make government accountable to the people it serves. As we prepare to govern, we'll start announcing the leaders who will help implement our agenda. People like deputy mayors who oversee entire areas of government, and the commissioners who carry out the critical work of city agencies. These appointments will be driven by excellence, integrity, and hunger to solve old problems with new solutions. Talking to organizers on the front lines of the fight to improve our city, government veterans with proven track records, policy experts from around the country and the world, and working people who know better than anyone what our neighborhoods deserve. And this will be a period, like the campaign we ran and the city hall to come, defined by transparency. Because New Yorkers deserve a government they can trust. On January 1st, I will be your mayor. New Year's Day and a new era for this city.
Oh, and go ahead. One more thing. Kick in. Can you kick in to help fund what we're doing during this transition? Because there's no government money behind it. We need your money. That's how we run. Does anyone think that's going to work? By the way, that guy sounds a lot like a more polished version of Kash Patel. He's going to do the transparency routine. We're going to have new solutions to old problems. Blah, 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 blah. Listen, I found the cohort of guys that he's going to be leaning on. So that's good news. At least we can evaluate them based on their ideas and their ability to implement. Remember, we're talking about executing government power, execution, the executive side of government. That means you got to, wield authority. It's an implied violence almost. So you need masculine and aggressive men, not the kind of men who would work at a daycare. Men who are going to change the world with their votes, like this. Their moment. It's catchy. I like it. I assume this is like a New York gay men's choir. Is that what's going on here? Translated into Korean. Okay, there. What do you think, guys? Well, first of all, I don't know what that is, but I found it and I thought, like, man, that's really good. I think that's like a New York gay men's choir, but I don't know for a fact. I'm looking at the men, and they seem unattached to women, unattached to children, and relatively not that fat. So that seems accurate. If you know what this is, please let me know in the comments below. I would very much like to go. They're still going. If you're listening right now and you're not watching, I just turned the volume down, but they're still dancing. They're still doing whatever the hell that was. They're going to vote. They're going to solve the problem. I have to believe that those are gay men because I've been around straight men for a lot of my life, and I don't know any of them that would sign up and be like, you know what? Yeah, put me in the video with the guy with the shirtless Asian who's got kind of like the popcorn muscles. I want to be in that. I want to go do a Glee video saying that we're going to bring in Mamdani. Those are the first guys thrown off the building, I think, whenever they decide to do it. All of this goes to my argument. Okay, if that's what men look like, then I can imagine why you might be frustrated. And also, you can see the women that are screaming and they're angry about their MAGA parents. That only exists because they haven't actually had men in their lives. And if that's the man in their life, then you can imagine, they might be pissed. This lady kind of sums it up. I think it's really good. We're going to get to government agencies that need to be disbanded. I'll give you that in a second here. But let's keep having a little bit of fun with it, and a little musical interlude is never bad. By the way, they had rhythm. They had beautiful harmony. Their voices were raised, even if it was a lame gay message from a gay choir. It's nice. I'm not mad at them. If they could keep a tune, they sound better than some country music sensations out there.
Honestly, and I'm probably going to get eaten alive for saying this, I feel like a lot of women have forgotten their place. And we live in this inverted world, and I feel we got stuck in this whole feminism thing. Feminism is a scam, and now it's like trying to undo. It is. Feminism, I don't care what anybody says. Yes, we are equal in value, but we are not equal in traits. We are different. Men and women are different.
I agree with that.
And I'm so sick and tired of why are we fighting to be something that we're not? I am not a man. I will never be a man. And for those of you that make that decision, I love that for you. Period. But there are certain things that are just, y'all are stronger than we are. We are more detail oriented than you are. There are certain traits that we naturally got from God based on the gender that we are. And it's all based on survival. It's all based on human nature. And so I feel like a lot of women, not all women, but most women have forgotten their place.
Within themselves, within
the order of family, within the order, even like with God, if you just want to start blanketing statements, like, now this is the thing, if you are a masculine woman, that's fine, but stop acting like you're feminine. If you want to be a boss babe, I don't need no man, you go do you, boo, but stop teaching that that's the answer, because I'm sick and tired of this divide of the family. I'm sick and tired of now good men, I'm listening to like stories, right? Good men are getting lazy in dating. They're getting lazy in the pursuit because women are making either everything too easy or they're too hands off. So now what's the point in even trying to date a woman when you're the man that you want me to be?
Whoa. Why would you date someone if you're the man that you want me to be? Yuck. Also, I found this, which made me laugh because women, y'all know. If you don't have something to put that instinct on, it ends up going into weird places. This would almost be a palate cleanser, but it's too short. This is my last piece of evidence, and then I'm going to let a man make the argument too, and then we'll go and we'll do government stuff. If you're worried about things that are so far away from you that you could never touch them or influence them, perhaps, just perhaps, your priorities are misaligned. And I do think that is the case. I think there are a lot of people who are not bad people, but their instincts are misaligned because they haven't been able to apply the things that they're built for, as that woman just said, the things that matter. Imagine caring so much about pigs, having never met a pig, that you're making videos about it and hoping the internet will fix this problem.
I just saw a video that said that because of the way that pigs' eyes are placed, they can't see the sky. So if someone with a pig could like lift them so they can see the
She's
sky,
in tears.
just so that I can be okay.
I even know what the sound was going to be. Don't put a pig's head up to the sky. It's almost like you think that you should be able to solve the problems in creation, or maybe they were actually created that way. Did you see how tearful that lady was, though? It's not from a bad place. That's probably a really nice person. She's probably a sweetheart. She says she's just misapplied her empathy and her emotionality. And so that's the argument that this guy makes. And I think it's a strong argument. And it's like, we're looking at the symptoms and everybody wants to fix the symptoms. But the symptoms don't talk to the disease. And when I say that the disease goes back, we can look at the amendments that have caused significant problems and undermined our system. And the reason why we have a Nancy Pelosi doing the awful things that Nancy Pelosi did. And the reason why we have executive power that's out of... This all goes back, it's over 100 years now. 1913. 16th Amendment. You gave the federal government power to take your money first. So why would you not think that they would come and be the ones that hand out food to people, and they are the ones that are going to be able to decide whether or not you get to eat? You delegated this authority. We did as a country. It's like 110 years ago. And then we also destroyed our system where we don't have a Senate that works. You want to talk about getting rid of the filibuster? How about you get rid of the 17th Amendment? How about you stop direct electing senators? Because this is nonsense. That's not how it's supposed to be. All right? And so the argument goes back a long ways ago. And while we're getting rid of amendments, they got rid of the 18th. How about the 19th? This guy makes the argument, and I don't think he's wrong. And this is not, listen, here's the funny thing. People hear the opening of this, and they'll be really pissed. They'll be like, bah! It's not because people don't love women. It's because we do love women. And women who look at this, like objectively, they go, just like that lady was talking about how things have been subverted and femininity has been stolen from women. Yes. You can either be the man that you want a man to be, or you can let a man be the man that you want him to be. One of them is that they campaign for this thing, and the world is not much better because of it. Costs are out of control. Our national debt is insane. And a lot of these things come from that exact same era. As my dad used to call it, good idea, bad execution.
Is it good that women can vote in America? I don't think so, and here's why. Nearly every legalized moral atrocity of the last 100 years was made possible by the female vote. Abortion and homosexuality would likely still be illegal if not for the female vote. Mass immigration of the welfare state rode on the backs of the female vote. Nearly every modern Democrat, including Obama and Biden, were elected because of the female vote. Even last night, the new Muslim New York City mayor, Mamdani, won specifically because of the female vote. The 19th Amendment has been a moral and political tragedy for America, but why? Women were not made to lead, but to follow and to feel. This is God's design, and it's good within the family and the household. But emotions cannot be what is used to rule and govern a nation. Statistically and generally speaking, women vote for whatever feels most kind or peaceful or safe to their emotions. Women crave security and comfort, and whoever promises those things wins their loyalty. The problem is evil men know this, and they exploit it. For example, women are twice as likely to men to be seduced into an affair. They are 26% more likely to be financially scammed online. They are 3 times more likely to fall prey to psychics and tarot card readings and astrology and mediums. The same emotional vulnerability that shows up there also shows up in politics. Many call it suicidal empathy. So I believe that we should return to the household vote, where women share their thoughts with their fathers or their husbands, and the men in their life make the final decision. Men are not perfect, but they are far more fit to rule with logic, and they are less likely to be deceived in political matters. So I don't believe that we should repeal the 19th Amendment because I don't love women. I believe we should repeal the 19th Amendment because I love America, and I love American women enough to protect them and our nation from their political exploitation.
What do you think about that? Because I think that's a pretty coherent argument. And I also like the idea that it's almost built in the way our Constitution was originally written. And the organization structure that the American founders came up with it was brilliant. There was always a filter for the emotionality of the mob. There was a filter that was built in so that the masses didn't just move on whim and emotion. That's why the lower house represented the people and the upper houses represented the states, which was a level of filtration up. In the same way that you could have a sentiment in your household. And by the way, if you think that your home, if you're the man of your house, if you think it's not shaped by the women in your house, like, you're a nut. Of course it is. That's the person you talk to. That's the person that you hear. Those are the problems that you see that exist, and they are the ones who experience it in the world. And so you want things that are good for them if you're a good man and you run your house properly. And then also a little bit of less emotionality. Great example of this in my own household. My wife will come to me and say, this person is having a problem. And I'll say, okay, tell me more. And so she'll tell me about this person's problem. And she'll make a very emotional case because she's seen this person suffering. And she says, look, what can we do? And then we get to do an assessment without the emotion. This is my end of it because I don't know this person and I don't necessarily care. I care that my wife cares, but I don't care about that person individually because I don't know them. And I say, well, here's the financial abilities that we have to do it. Here's the problems I see that might come up by us funding their bad decision theater. And so we're willing to do maybe a grocery buy, but I'm not willing to send them a check for money when I've seen that they spend their money on fill in the blank things, which are really dumb. They have a brand new car and they have tattoos and they can't take care of their kids and they can't feed them. That's not good. But I will give food for their kids, right? So there's a balancing act that happens there. She wanted to say, can we cut them a check and help them out? They're having hard times. And I look at it from a little different perspective. And this is actually the way that our government was set up to do. It really was set up so that the masses could come in the House of Representatives and say, we want this thing, give it to us. And then the states would go, but this thing is not quite good for you. And we've reflected upon it. And without a mass majority, we are not going to be able to push this thing forward. Or everyone says this is a great idea. There's a thing that the man said in that video that was very poignant. And some of you probably heard it and it just went past you. He used the word tragedy. One of the benefits I have of the education that I sometimes squandered and didn't always show up for is that I went to some classes in the classics. And the classical definition of the word tragedy is really relevant. And you probably heard this even in high school, if you guys think about it. Tragedy was a Greek play, and it was high drama, and it showed suffering and human misfortune. And the reason why tragedy is so impactful from us, The reason why it actually affects us so much is because all tragedies had a possibility of incredible and brilliant success. It also hinges around usually a tragic hero. The tragic hero is some super creature that has great ideas but a fatal flaw. And that fatal flaw ends up being the undoing. And it can be things like pride or called hubris. It can be things like narcissism. It can always be some sort of character defect that ends up bringing the person down. So great potential, and everybody can see it, but also everybody goes, oh, crap. It's going to go badly because this is a person trying to do something that they are unable to reach to. And that's how it ends up being tragic. And that's why it is so familiar to us. It's also familiar to us that we can look outside from somebody else's perspective. Somebody in it, they think they're making their own best decisions. And you can look from the outside and you'd be like, ooh, I don't think this is going to go well for you. I encourage you. You do this as a parent. You do this as a friend. You do this as a mentor. Like, I can already see your downfall. That's because you can see the tragic flaw in the plan. And oftentimes you can't talk people out of it. So they go out there and do this thing. Isn't that interesting? He said it was a tragedy. Very similar to what my father says. Good idea, bad execution. It comes from a good place. The place is making sure women feel that they are valued and they are important and they are part of the system and so on, but doing so in a way that is inevitably going to lead to freaking Zoran Mamdani running the city of New York. And the federal government being the one who decides whether or not people get to eat in this country at the tune of 42 million. And our debt being saddled with our kids because we're kicking it down the line and we are irresponsibly spending in a way that no business would be able to do and no previous government did. All right, I'm going to share with you my other secret, dangerous idea, which is that we have a current and modern day Praetorian Guard. We're talking a little bit about classics. Before we do, you may hear a Spotify ad here, and that is to say, if you're on the audio channel, there may be a break and you may hear something. Just want to give you the heads up like we do here. Follow us at KyleSerafinshow.com if you're listening on audio somewhere else. If you're watching on video, you can support us in any number of ways. You can do it on KyleSerafin.com, which is locals. You can do it on Rumble. You can do it on YouTube. Make sure you guys have hit a like if you're listening. I will ask for it again. Subscribe to the channel. We continue to grow there. Really cool to see. We are clearly suppressed over on Rumble, but I'm watching slow and reasonable and organic and less suppressed over on YouTube as we continue to build that channel over there. So thanks for all you doing that. All right, allow me to make a historical argument here. Do you all know what the Praetorian Guard was? Also known as what are they called? The Cohort Praetoria. The Praetorian Guard, and I'm giving a summary here, was the elite group, the Imperial Guard, that was basically taken in from military veterans and those who were loyal to the emperor in the Roman Empire. They stepped around and they created this impenetrable wall of safety. And then they became an investigative force, and they became sort of spies and a secret police force. And they also did something that is inevitable when you have folks who have masculinity and power and violence at their disposal, and they are able to do something because they have the authority of the supreme rule. Remember, the supreme branch, the primary branch of our government is meant to be the legislative branch. I'm going to make to you the argument that our current Capitol Police, the same people that were out there doing headshots with less than lethal, when lethal force was not authorized and was not appropriate in a riot environment, those people constitute essentially a Praetorian Guard for the members of Congress and the people like Nancy Pelosi. So as much fun as I've had in the middle here, kind of pointing some things out and suggesting to you that our governmental structure is weakening itself because it actually did have a plan. This is yet another turning point, which was in, what is this, the year that they created this thing? 1828, April 29th of 1828. Not a date that I've ever put in my list of problems when America was subverted, but this is truly a dangerous thing. And I think we can see the inevitable outgrowth of this sort of cancer. The Praetorian Guard did things like counterintelligence. They did things like crowd control. They did military intelligence, and they made sure that threats to the emperor were contained. What they also did is they made sure that threats to themselves were contained. The Praetorian Guard was known for also insulating itself by building up blackmail material. by finding out whatever sort of dirty little secrets may exist between the emperor and the emperor's family and those in power, and then held on to those things to be able to use them as trading, coins of the realm when needed. It'd be a real shame if everybody learned about this scandal that happened, or we learned that you were this person, or that you had these particular sexual improprieties, or so on and so forth. It'd be a real shame if that stuff went down. And so therefore, you should definitely side in our favor, and we're going to advise you to do this. And it turns out that extortion and blackmail have been working for a very, 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 very long time. Thousands of years of human experience says that. The Praetorian Guard is what my friend Steve Baker refers to the Capitol Police as these days. And I'm going to make the argument to you right now, and this is probably novel to most people, and it's also kind of nuanced, but I think it's really important. If we're going to have a Donald Trump that goes out there and tries to regain footing with young people, one of the things he's going to have to do is have a functional legislature. And I'm not sure you're going to get the 16th and the 17th Amendment to go away, and I'm pretty confident you're not going to be able to fund the American system with tariffs, so those might be lost causes. But what we could start doing is dismantling some of these weapon systems that exist and actually just acknowledging that this particular joint resolution of Congress, which took place in 1828, is unconstitutional. And he could actually have the Attorney General start taking real actions against things that are dangerous within the government. You want to talk about de-weaponization? How about we get rid of a group of people that wield ridiculously high amounts of power and potential blackmail material over our congressmen? Everyone always asks how it happens. We've seen significant corruption in the Capitol Police, and I don't think anyone's ever evaluated them until January 6th. I don't think anybody has ever taken a light and pointed in that corner and said, what in the actual hell is going on there? So here's the argument that I'm going to make. There are two parts of police power in this country. Police power is the ability to define and project governmental power on you, the individual citizen. Police powers are a part of a functional government, and they come in a forked sort of format. Part one is the legislative part of the police powers. That's the definitions and the statutory requirements and the appropriations and fundings to create whatever it is that they're doing. And the second part of it is the execution of that. In America, the brilliance of our system is a separation of powers. We take the legislature, the people who decide what it is that we will do and how we will do that and how we will fund it, and we make them separate from the person that actually implements that thing. That's what the executive and the legislature are constantly in conflict with. And we have a judicial branch that is meant to go out there and decide whether or not they are within the bounds of the rules as decided by the rules of the game, which is our Constitution. Here's where it gets really interesting. This act, this joint resolution from 1828 established the ability to protect the buildings and the grounds of the U.S. Congress and provide security and so on for the care, the preservation, the orderly keeping, the policing, and those portions of the Capitol. They're exclusively used by and the occupation of either House of Congress, respectively. They created this thing called from the Committee of Public Buildings and Grounds. As they moved the U.S. Capitol and they took all these actions and the Congress stopped meeting in Philadelphia and they moved into Washington, D.C., you got this strange little animal that came up. And so you have an executive agency in the Capitol Police, an executive agency that's straightforward and with no qualms about it is doing executive function. You have an executive agency doing executive functions, policing, arresting, security. What was the thing that we read about the Praetorian Guard? Counterintelligence, bodyguards, crowd control, threat intelligence units. But they work under a legislative organization. They are part of the legislature, and they cannot be. It cannot exist under the separation of powers. And if you go back and read Article 1 and Article 2, I actually pulled up the Constitution here, and I want to quote it specifically. Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives, and it goes on to define what that is. Article 2 says, the executive power shall be invested in a President of the United States of America, and he shall hold his office during a term of 4 years, and together with the Vice President, the same chosen term, elected as follows. all executive power. You cannot have executive power that is implemented underneath a legislature. They can fund it. They can appropriate for it. They can write single issue bills instead of doing continuing resolutions. Like Mike Johnson said, you should not have executive function under the legislature. And I'm going to give you an example of how we know that's true. Consider the judiciary. They're the third branch of government. They're considered high value dignitaries for the United States government function, right? SCOTUS, Supreme Court justices, U.S. courthouses. Who protects them? Have you ever been into one of these places? They're protected by the United States Marshal Service. So then you think, well, okay, that's fine. But the marshals are part of the DOJ. They're part of the, they're part of the Department of Justice, which is run by the Attorney General, which is appointed by the president because the Marshal Service are an executive agency. They provide security. You guys heard about this specifically when you heard about the Brett Kavanaugh wannabe assassin, right? Protected by the U.S. Marshal Service. The judiciary does not have its ability to call out its own special bodyguards, its own Praetorian. It doesn't have that. It's not authorized to under the Constitution. Article 3 does not allow it. Article 2 powers are now being possessed by the Article 1 branches of government. And that's not acceptable. And so when we have people that are completely ignorant of it, and we've started cutting apart, who's to say? My friend Steve Baker has been very, very convincing to me that the number of abuses that we saw, including things like Lieutenant Michael Byrd shooting Ashley Babbitt, the reason that these people were still in that job is because they were part of the Dignitary Protection Unit. They were part of the unit within that Capitol Police, within that broader Praetorian Guard structure. They were the inside circle. It doesn't mean that they're elite. It means they're the people that would be the closest to the people that make the bad decisions. And so if you've been drunk with a congressman and gotten away with it, even though you were driving a government vehicle on duty, or you've written hot checks and you've stolen from our government, but you didn't ever lose your job over it, why would that be unless you wielded some sort of dangerous power, which is exactly what the Praetorian Guard used to do. It starts off as an organization meant to protect the people that are in power, and it ends up assuming its own power itself. Now, they could write an appropriation and say that the executive has to go out and hire some contractors and we're going to pick our own contractors. But at some point in time, the executive should be able to decide whether or not it's going to actually implement that. Instead, what we have is an agency inside the Capitol Police that is 100% accountable to the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader. They've got their own private police force. Do you remember the outrage that people had under Joe Biden when they were talking about expanding that influence? By the way that this joint resolution is written, the way that this 1828 authorization goes down, it says that they have nationwide protection capabilities for anywhere that there are congresspeople. They don't have that authority under the Constitution to grant that. So inevitably, we're going to have problems. And there's always going to be the potential for corruption within the executive branch, but at least we know the powers are meant to reside there. They have over 2,000 employees. Why would it be that they have something like 4 or 5 times the number of the members that are actually even elected into those offices? That's how many people they have there to patrol and police the grounds and to do their stuff, to do investigations, and then to go out there and do arrests and enforcement. I got a real problem with this. I think this is a really a big issue that we're going to see. And as you wait for my friend Steve Baker to reveal the things that he's going to reveal and the identity of the pipe bomber, some of whom are accurately being guessed online. But the real question is, who is this person and what is the backstory there? And why is it so troubling? And how is it allowed to happen? And I'm going to argue that this is the first branch or the first government agency that should be a easy win. It should not be allowed to exist. And if it does exist, it needs to be brought underneath the executive and taken control of by that, because we should not be able to have an executive function working against the executive, which is what I think happened on January 6th. And the second problem is that because it is a government agency, like so many of them, you guys mentioned the CIA, you guys mentioned the FBI, there's other governmental intelligence agencies. They also have the ability with the sort of long-term actors there to look out for themselves. And Hoover was a famous, for at least that's what we're told. There was a lot of exploitation, that the files built up by Hoover and the blackmail capabilities there and extortion, they were long running. This is why we actually have term limits on that job. So somebody doesn't absorb it for life and then just become more powerful than the presidents, which may have been the case with J. Edgar Hoover. It's pretty crippling when you see that we had such a brilliant system put together, and then we go out there and we have destroyed it ourselves. And it's almost always in the name of safety and security. If you'll notice the votes for Mamdani, it's going to be about food security, and it's going to be about safety and the ability to move places and feeling good and the emotionality of not having police officers being mean, because sometimes to be a man is to be mean and to be harsh and to subdue the world around you. And that's not nice. So wouldn't it be better if we just had social workers and no NYPD? There is a claim that that's that's the way to go about it. I think you guys will find out that it's not good. And it's not exclusive to our side that people do not know that this system exists. I'm just going to play this because it's really funny to me, and then I'm going to go and critique it. So for all of you that are listening to folks out there that talk a big game and they look nice on TV and they have words that feel good, this is Benny Johnson. And I believe that he's at a Turning Point event. Yeah, I'm positive he's at a Turning Point event. Benny Johnson at a Turning Point event. And he makes a false claim that the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness or property are somehow in the United States Constitution, which of course they are not. They're part of the preamble to the Declaration of Independence, which is not a governmental document. It has no standing. It's an aspirational document. It's a mission statement, but it does not have legal power. So that's absurd. And then he says that this administration, as though he is part of the executive, I guess he might be, he's speaking on their behalf in some way, is going to make housing affordable. The federal government has no business getting into housing. So these people that are out there that are Republicans, it's the reason why I am not a Republican, is because they do not represent conservatives. There's nothing conservative about this speech. This is like populism and nonsense.
Final thing I'm going to say here is that in the Constitution it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of property in certain other instances. And that's something that we've lost in this country. I'm particularly horrified that the American dream of owning a home is so out of reach for all of the young people here. If you are 35 and younger, home ownership rates are at 30%. That's down by half from a generation ago. And we need to fix that. Who here wants to own a home one day? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not one to break news in front of massive stadiums of people, but I want to announce right now a massive interagency and interinstitutional effort in order to encourage and provide resources from a massive federal level and a legislative level to ensure that we reignite the American dream for first-time young homebuyers. It will happen in this administration. We are going to make the American dream affordable again. We are going to make owning a home great again. And we're going to be able to raise our families, our Labradors, in these beautiful houses with white picket fences. And we're going to live like our grandparents, because you know what? They had a lot of nice things figured out. And you can sit on your front porch here in Alabama with your shotgun, happy in your Trump home.
What is that? Who's buying into that? So the federal government's going to come in and mandate that you have access to housing? I don't get it. I love it when our chat fact checks me, by the way. Chat, show me where that is in the Constitution. Allow me to read you the preamble, which is what people think it's in. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So, we have ignorant people out there making non-conservative claims. And yes, affordability is an issue. But there's a systemic problem, which is that you're just ignoring the role of the federal government. There is nothing the federal government should have to do with the cost of housing. It's a local market problem. And the only reason it's a problem is because the federal government keeps getting involved in these things. It's really gross to watch it happen because you got standing ovation and cheers. And it's the same kind of cheering you'd have for this lady who's finally out. Nancy Pelosi. Big news of the day. Who's she going to turn over the reins to? Who's going to pick it up? Who's going to be the next person that makes all the same bad decisions? Because I don't see a big difference on one side of the aisle or the other. They promise things that are not within the scope of what they're supposed to do. And I don't want it. So I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm going to try to come up with some solutions for Donald Trump, and he won't hear them. But we can at least have the ideas that when we go out and someone says, what are the answers? We'll at least have some of these answers. So I'm going to work on some of those for you as well. I didn't want to miss this opportunity to tell you that our jet did travel, and it might be a segment that we start doing more frequently. There's a segment I'd like to do, and I'm going to probably try to introduce it in the future, but it's the something about Cash's travel, Kyle's jet setting, something. Someone made me some music for it, so I'm going to play that for you right now. If you guys want to send me bumper music for segments, I will create a segment for it because it's something that we're going to do anyway. And it's super catchy. If you didn't hear this online, then now you have, and we'll start making it part of the game.
Every movie makes, I see it on the screen.
And there it is on the screen. Yesterday, sometime late last night, our time, the FBI executive jet flew from just outside of Tokyo over to Seoul. And he is now in South Korea. And this is a super fun jam. I'll put this over for those of you who want to be able to download it and make it your ringtone.
Nashville, I see it all. It's not a petty crime.
Yeah, I'll put that over on Locals for you guys who want to hear it because it made me laugh quite a bit. Somebody put some effort into this. There's some really talented people out there. So there you go, folks. We'll make a segment about this because I'm going to keep following it. And since they're not going to back down on this and they are going to keep abusing our stuff, the other Praetorian Guard, the FBI, we should police our own and so-called our team. All right. That's pretty fun. All right, that's it for today's show. I hope you guys will follow us over on the places that you can. You can support the program by hitting a like over on Rumble. You can do the same thing on YouTube. Those are free. You guys can subscribe to the channels. Also free, easy to do. If you're on X, find us on one of the monetized places, and we'd appreciate that too. If you're watching on replay, if you hadn't checked out Spotify, you should be doing that. It's KyleSerafinshow.com, KyleSerafinshow.com to get to the Spotify sort of cheat code. You'll be able to do audio and video over there. And I think it's the best user experience after the fact. So check those out. Like the places where you can. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. I feel like that was our palate cleanse, if you will. And I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow with whatever the hell's coming our way on this Friday.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.